Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled, The Language of Love Embodies Love, the Language of War Embodies War. What's up? What's up? I was asked this the other day, and I was a bit taken aback by it actually. I replied, well, nothing much. I feel quite good actually. I was a bit tired as it was a Sunday evening and I'd had a heavy week and I'd just gone through the emotion of watching the England game and penalties and, an extra time, and all that business. Didn't go to penalties, did it? But a bit emotionally drained from that, and it'd been a bit of a week with work and so other things and personal things and people to deal with. So I was feeling a little bit tired, but in my heart, in my soul, I was pretty good really. So there was nothing the matter. So that's what I told her. And what's up to me means, is there something the matter with you? She was a bit taken aback by my response actually, because she wasn't asking me a question about my well-being. She was asking, what's up? As in, what have I been up to? What's going on? What's going on with me? A bit like the old Coca-Cola advert, I suppose, the old what's up. I'm not going to attempt that, by the way. I'm just not made that way. It was a kind of hilarious moment that revealed something rather interesting and very amusing to me. It's not always the words that we use, but the meaning behind the words that we use. As we all know, words change in their meaning over time. In fact, some words and some language that we use can mean almost the exact opposite of what they originally meant. Like the word awful is the classic example I always turn to, which originally meant to be filled with awe in a powerful and overwhelming sense. A kind of a stronger version of what awesome means today. But 100 times more powerful than awesome, to be filled with awe. These days, the word awful means something really terrible, like the worst thing that could happen to it. Oh, it's awful, awful. It's odd, isn't it, that nowadays having a little awe or some is a good thing, but being overwhelmed with awe, awful, is about the worst thing imaginable. So there you go, that's language that's changed in meaning. Language, words, they connect us, but language and words can also separate us. Words are incredibly powerful things, whether they're spoken or they're written, however they're expressed. Words can begin to bring deep healing, or they can be deeply destructive. What matters actually is the intention behind the words we speak or the words we write. What seems to matter is the condition of our heart and our soul as we speak what we must speak, as we say what we must say, as we write what we must write. It's the meaning behind the words we use that matters the most, it would appear. Words are very powerful. They can be either destructive or they can be creative. And an example of their creative power comes at the beginning of John's Gospel and the following translation of the lines. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So according to John, the spoken word can literally create life, all life. Now, of course, in the original Greek, which these opening words were written, in originally anyway, the word for word was logos, which roughly translated actually does not mean merely a word as in a spoken or written word, but it could mean speech, or it could mean principle or meaning or thought. So it's not the word, it's the meaning, the principle, the foundation of the word itself. not a simple word uttered or spoken. In Greek philosophy, it's also referred to as divine reason or the mind of God. It could mean God speaking life into being, I guess, likening it to those first verses from Genesis when God said that he breathed life into being. Remembering always in that first book of Genesis that he saw his creation as good. So the meaning, the word is good. Life is good. That is the meaning of life, to create what is good and wonderful and beautiful. And I believe that is the meaning that came into being at the beginning. Jesus being the ultimate example of this in human form. And for me, that's something we can all aspire to be like. We can all incarnate love, that divine meaning, through our creation, our being. And maybe it begins in our words and how we say these words, for they are an expression of our meaning. And it also begins in how we listen to others, our ability for each to share an open, loving invitation to the other, to be who they are, to speak their truth, to use their words in creative and loving ways. And I would say that this is divine activity. This is the kingdom of love alive in our lives, in that space between us. You see, when we speak, we're not merely flapping our lips, vibrating air. We are engaged in divine activity through our words, through our speech, that divine meaning. Through our words, we are creating or we are destroying life. And it's the same when we listen. If we listen with the ears of our hearts, we are creating sacred space. And that to me is that kingdom of love right here, right now, in that space between us. So it's not just about what we say, the words we use, but the meaning behind the words. And I think that brings a deeper meaning to that phrase. The word, logos, meaning, became flesh and dwelt amongst us. For we all embody our meaning through our words. It's not the only way we do so, but it's one way. And how we use the words that we utter, or the words that we write. Last Sunday afternoon, I read a wonderful article in the online magazine, the newspaper. It was posted on Twitter. It was written by Susie Dent of Countdown fame. Susie is my favourite social commentator on social media. She has a gift of commenting on things using language, old language and new language, often using old words that have gone out of common usage actually. And she comments on what's going on in the world through this language. She expresses her meaning through the use of these words. The article is reflecting on negative language used throughout the general election, the recent general election, and of course the England football team, particularly words used towards Gareth Southgate or the different candidates for Prime Minister. Susie suggests that this kind of negative language is nothing new, and that the English language generally skews towards negativity. And that's a favourite subject of Susie's, which I've highlighted before, how she kind of talks about positive versions of negative words, and the positive words have kind of gone out of usage, they've died off, but the negative examples have remained. I spoke about this a few weeks ago. In the article she writes, take the word happy, which didn't appear in English until the 14th century. Until then you would simply be glad. When it did come to happiness, the word lent heavily upon chance. Hap meant fortune or fate, so that perhaps means if fate allows. A happening was a chance occurrence, and hapless became a description for someone who never has much luck at all. But it was nothing to do with what you did. It was just pure luck, pure chance. The message seems to be that happiness has always been rather precarious, if not entirely random. In fact, a rifle through a historical thesaurus offers just 12 synonyms for happy and over 50 for the opposite of happy. And so just like us when we commentate on the political landscape or the landscape of sport, our words, like ourselves, are wired for pessimism. It's easier to be pessimistic than optimistic. Then through the article, Susie goes on a journey about words and language for those seeking approval, again, like those standing for election, stating, of course, approval or lack of it is the theme of the moment, whether it involves the football team or the party leaders seeking our votes. It's also a word with expectation built into it. Proof and approve are close relations, meaning that linguistically at least, approval won't be given without proof that it is deserved. Without it, many of us stick to the pessimism corner. It's easier to stay there. A bit like Diogenes in his barrel, chucking dirt, muck at the world. Finally, in the article, she turns to language and particularly the word testimony, with reference again to the political class, ending, as she always does, with a wonderful bit of humour. She stated, "Given the chance, our language veers instinctively to the dark side. Perhaps we need more proof and fewer promises to guarantee our approval. Truthful testimony can be hard to find amongst the fakery, on which note it's worth saying that testimony, from the Latin testis, witness, and testicles, are etymologically one and the same. Witness and testicles are one and the same. A man's testicles were believed to be witness to his virility. Perhaps talking bollocks has always been part of the deal." Wonderful, wonderful social commentary, and not just on the football and the England manager and the political figures trying to get our votes with their words, but also on us and our culture and our language. Wonderful, beautiful, and funny, and how much we need humour. But the truth is, what we say and the meaning behind our language really, really matters, you know. Our words are our meaning. Logos meaning that. It's not just about the words that we use, but the meaning behind the words that we use. And that meaning can be either deeply creative or destructive. And cynicism has become a very destructive thing, by the way. It only leads us down dark black holes. Ursula Le Guin, the great 20th century novelist, probably maybe one of the greats actually, wrote the following: "Words are events. They do things, change things. They transform both the speaker and the hearer. They feed energy back and forth and amplify it. They feed understanding or emotion back and forth and amplify it." Words express our meaning and they amplify the meaning of our society and our culture. This is why the meaning of words change over time. Remember, logos meant both word, as in the words we speak, and more than that, it meant meaning. And yet, in the English translation of the Bible, it's always translated as word, not meaning. And we need to understand the meaning behind the words that we use. But they're one and the same. I was admonished the other day for saying something that was considered a bit unkind, really. It was not meant that way. I was asked a direct question and gave an honest and, I thought, thoughtful response. And I was actually agreeing with the questioner. That said, someone overhearing what I said replied with the thought that it was a little unkind. On reflection, it probably was actually, although it was not the meaning behind what I said. It was not my intention, but still it came across that way. So I apologised. Meaning and the meaning behind our words is what matters. It plays a part in the creation or the destruction of life. There's a song on the latest New Model Army album titled called Unbroken. The image is of a horse, by the way, an unbroken horse. Interesting. A bit like language, it's difficult to tame. But the song is called Language, and the chorus of the song goes something like this. The language of love will bring us love. The language of war will bring us war. The way that all the words become true. The way that all the words become true. The language of love will bring us love. The language of war will surely bring us war. We choose it, we own it. We choose it, we own it. We choose it, we own it. It's really important that we own the language we use. We have to be responsible for the words we use and the meaning behind the words that we use. Are they words of love that play a role in the creation of life, or are they words of war and hate that play a part in the destruction of life? For the words we use express our meaning. And this is something that has disturbed me these last few weeks of the general election, some of the language that has been appalling actually. And in public life in general, the general discourse these last few years. Destructive. We need to be careful with the language that we use and what we mean by what we say. For no one wins in war. It's just one side might lose a little more than the other. We all pay the price in the destruction of public life and our lives. I hope that the public discourse will improve somewhat now the electioneering is over. I hope it will, because it's not been good for quite some time. Now, of course, language is subtle and complex, and often it's not direct. And metaphor is important. It gives a richness. And this is particularly true when speaking of the great religious stories. They were mythos, they were metaphor. To me, they were trying to teach a deeper truth. That's what mythos is, really. But should not be taken as historical fact to be proven or to be disproven. For mythos originally meant universal truth, something that makes sense to us throughout the ages. It wasn't about fact to be proved or unproven. So metaphor's always been there. The religious stories used metaphor and mythos. That's what they're about, to teach a deeper truth. Something that can resonate with the deeper aspects of our lives. And all of us, whether we're aware of it or not, use metaphor to name our own experience of life. It's very hard to exactly express what we experience. But the metaphors we use, we need to be careful about those, for they will express our meaning. Our personal metaphors, the language we use, express our meaning. They express who we are. And I was thinking about this as I thought about the language of war and the language of love. People say such things as, life is a game of chance. Some win, some lose. I remember the word happy was about fortune. Or life is like a battlefield. You get the enemy, or the enemy gets you. Such metaphors see life as a conflict, that we're one side against the other. And they're very much intertwined with the Hobbesian or veneer theory of life. And that's been very much the language of recent times, the last few years, not just the last few weeks. Pitting people against one another, and we all lose. Now, the metaphor that speaks to me personally, that expresses my own logos, my own meaning, is perhaps a metaphor about the weather, or maybe more accurately, the seasonal nature of life. And this summer's been 4 seasons in a day, constantly. It's been more like spring, really. For life is neither strictly one thing, exactly one thing, or the opposite thing. There is a richness to life as there is a richness to meaning, as there is a richness to language. Life is an eternal cycle, ever changing and transforming. Not transcending, but transforming always changing. Everything changes. You can experience 4 seasons in a day. I think we have today. I have today. It's been beautiful, and then it's been raining, and we have not had snow, I suppose, and no hailstones, although wasn't that long ago. There is joy in life, there is pain in life, there is loss in life, there is gain in life. There is darkness, there is light. It's important to me to become light in any of the darkness in life. That's me embodying my meaning, my love. So the dark does not overcome the light. I wonder, what are the metaphors of your life? What is the language you use to speak of yourself and of life? What is your meaning? And how do you bring that meaning to life? Do you speak the language of love, or do you speak the language of war? For it matters the words we use and the meaning behind those words. Are they part of the creation, or are they part of the destruction of life? Do you speak the language of love, or do you speak the language of war? What's up? What's up? What's up? Word. Word. I'm going to end with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more. And we can all bless. We bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So some final words of blessing. May the love that we have known throughout our days be alive in our hearts and our being. And may we carry the vision of that love with us as we return to our lives. May we carry that divine love, that divine meaning with us. May it shine bright from our very being. May we carry that spirit of love. May it come alive in our being. May it come alive, may it incarnate through our lives. And may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Go in love, go in peace. Amen.